She let him sleep in her car during the storm. He said he had nowhere else to go. The rain hadn't let up in hours. Heavy droplets thudded on the windshield like an anxious heartbeat, steady and insistent. Ellie stood at the glass door of her tiny bakery on the edge of town, key in hand, hesitating. Normally, she didn't think twice about locking up and heading home, but tonight was different. There was something in the air, something unsettled, not just in the clouds. Across the empty parking lot, dimly lit by a flickering street lamp, a figure stood motionless. Soaked to the bone, hands in the pockets of a military-style coat that had seen better years. He didn't look threatening, just lost. She watched him for a full minute. Most people would have turned away, hurried to their cars, pretended they hadn't seen. But Ellie had never been most people. She stepped out with her umbrella, crossed the puddled lot and spoke. "Sir? Are you all right?" The man didn't answer. He looked at her, eyes glassy, unreadable, and then back at the ground. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't high. He was just gone somewhere inside himself. "I have a car," she said, gesturing gently toward her old sedan. "It's dry. You can sit there for a bit, warm up. I'm locking up the shop." Still, he said nothing. But he followed her, quietly. As she opened the car door and handed him a towel from the back seat, he gave the faintest nod. Back inside, Ellie finished wiping the counters, stacking the leftover croissants, and setting the lights to low. The storm was going nowhere. She thought of that man sitting in her car, silent as stone, and a part of her felt ridiculous. But another part, the part she'd learned to trust, felt calm. It wasn't the first time she'd offered something without being asked. Once, long ago, she brought home a stray dog that bit her shoe and stole her heart. Another time, she helped a runaway teen find her way back to her mother. Those stories never made headlines. They didn't need to. She believed small kindnesses mattered more when no one was watching. By the time she got back to the car, he had fallen asleep. His head leaned against the window, breath fogging the glass. She sat in the driver's seat and turned on the heat, watching him from the corner of her eye. Up close, he looked young, 30s maybe, but tired beyond years. His coat bore a patch near the collar. Faded, almost scratched out. Her eyes squinted. Army issue. Or maybe Navy. The fabric was worn, the threads frayed like an old flag no one saluted anymore. She didn't wake him. Just sat there as the rain drummed its rhythm against the roof, humming an old tune her brother used to whistle before his deployments. Ben. He'd been gone 7 years now. She wondered, suddenly, if this man had known someone like Ben, someone who never came back whole. The storm raged through the night, and she eventually dozed off too, arms folded across her chest, feet tucked beneath her. The kind of sleep that only exhaustion could grant. The next morning, 3 army trucks blocked the parking lot. She woke up to find 3 army trucks blocking the parking lot. Ellie blinked hard as daylight filtered through the fogged-up windshield. Her neck ached from sleeping upright and her back was sore, but it was the sound of low engines idling outside that pulled her fully awake. At first, she thought it was a garbage truck. Maybe a delivery gone wrong. But when she sat up and looked past the condensation, her breath caught. 3 military trucks. Big, sand-colored, silent except for the deep rumble of engines running low. Parked like sentinels, forming a barricade across the lot. She turned to the passenger seat. Empty. The man was gone. Her door creaked as she opened it, stepping out slowly. The morning air was crisp, but not cold, just sharp enough to make her skin sting with the bite of sudden questions. A uniformed soldier approached. Not young, not old, early 40s maybe. Serious face. Trim haircut. Not smiling. "Ma'am, are you Ellie Carter?" She hesitated. "Yes." "What's going on?" The man looked past her, then gestured to one of the trucks. "We need you to come with us." "I'm sorry, what? Why?" The soldier's jaw tightened slightly. You gave shelter last night to a man. A man we've been searching for a long time. Ellie shook her head. I didn't know who he was. He didn't even tell me his name. That's not in question, ma'am. You didn't do anything wrong. We just need to ask you a few questions. Her eyes flicked from soldier to soldier. Each one alert, postured, trained. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was real. Serious. She swallowed the lump rising in her throat. Can I at least grab my keys? He nodded, but stayed close. Close enough to make it clear she wasn't going anywhere without their permission. Inside the bakery, she grabbed her keys and took a shaky breath. Her world had turned upside down in a matter of hours. She'd spent the night offering a stranger kindness, and now it seemed that kindness had become a spotlight. They didn't take her far, just behind the trucks, where a fourth vehicle waited. Not a truck. A black SUV. Tinted windows. Inside was a man in a suit, mid-50s, with the look of someone who hadn't smiled in years. He opened the door for her himself. Miss Carter, thank you for coming. Please sit. She sat, rigid. The man leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Do you know who the man was? No, she said firmly. He said he had nowhere else to go. It was raining. He looked exhausted. I let him sleep in my car. That's it. The man studied her. We believe he was Sergeant Jackson Reed. Missing in action 4 years ago. Presumed dead. Her breath stopped. What? The man nodded. Until last night, we had no indication he was alive. And then he appeared in your bakery parking lot. That's not coincidence, Miss Carter. She stared at him, confusion knitting her brows. Why would he come to me? I don't know him. We're trying to figure that out. They didn't keep her long after that. The soldiers were polite. Apologetic, even. But their eyes never left her. One offered her a card, some kind of liaison officer. If he contacts you again, call immediately. Day or night. She nodded. What else could she do? The trucks left as quickly as they'd come. By mid-morning, the lot was empty again, as if nothing had happened. As if the night before had been a dream soaked in rain and mystery. Inside the bakery, she stood behind the counter, hands trembling slightly as she restocked the muffin case. Her regulars came and went, smiling, laughing, sipping coffee. No one knew what had happened. No one saw the ghosts that had passed through. Then, at noon, a manila envelope appeared on the front doorstep. No one saw who left it. Inside, a single photograph. A soldier standing beside her brother, Ben. The man was the stranger from last night. The man in the photo was her brother's best friend, and he had died in Afghanistan. Ellie dropped the photograph as if it burned. It fluttered to the hardwood floor of the bakery, landing face up. There was no mistaking it. The soldier standing next to Ben in desert camo, both of them smiling with tired eyes and dust on their faces, it was him. The man from last night. The man who slept in her car. The man who had disappeared before dawn. Her heart pounded as she crouched to pick up the photo, hands trembling. She hadn't seen this picture before. Ben had sent postcards. Sparse emails. Short calls during deployment. But this was something else. A moment frozen in time, proof of something no one had told her. Jackson Reed. It had to be him. The name surfaced from some far-off corner of memory. Ben had mentioned him once, maybe twice, back when they were still kids, and war was just something on the evening news. Reed has my back, Ben had written in one of his letters. He's the reason I'm still breathing. She stared at the image, her throat tightening. Ben had died overseas. That was what the letter from the Department of Defense had said. He had died, along with 3 others, during a convoy ambush. They were never able to recover all the bodies. But what if one had made it out? The doorbell jingled, someone entered the bakery, but Ellie barely noticed. She slipped the photo into her apron pocket and muttered something to her assistant, Melissa, before stepping into the back office. She sat down, phone in hand, heart racing. Her fingers hovered over the screen, then finally opened the browser. Jackson Reed. Sergeant. Missing in action. Presumed dead. There he was. The same angular face. Same eyes. A little more worn. A little more shadowed. But unmistakably the same man who had rested his head against her car window just hours before. She scrolled through classified blurbs, blurry photos, old deployment records. One article mentioned rumors, someone had reported a man resembling Reed in rural Utah 2 years ago. Another said he'd been part of a top-security mission gone sideways. Nothing conclusive. No family. No official homecoming. No funeral. She leaned back, overwhelmed. Why her? Why had he shown up here, of all places? And what had the military meant when they said it wasn't a coincidence? Her mind raced back to last night. The storm. His silence. The way he avoided looking her in the eye when she asked where he'd come from. And now this envelope, this photo that felt more like a whisper from the past than a message from the present. The back of the photograph had a short message in pen. 4 words. Tell Ben I'm sorry. She stared. Ben was dead. Unless. A knock at the back door jolted her upright. She opened it, cautiously. No one. Just the faint smell of burnt diesel on the breeze and a shadow disappearing down the alley. Something told her this wasn't over. Not even close. She turned the photo over again. Those 4 words repeated in her mind like a drumbeat. Tell Ben I'm sorry. She didn't know how the photograph got in her office, until she noticed the muddy boot print just inside the back door. It wasn't there yesterday. Ellie stood motionless, the morning light from the bakery window slicing across the wooden floor, illuminating the single muddy print like a silent accusation. She dropped her gaze to her own shoes. Dry. Clean. Melissa had just mopped. This footprint wasn't hers, and it hadn't come from any delivery guy either. She stepped closer. The tread was wide and military-grade, like something from combat boots. Still damp. Fresh. Her hand brushed her apron pocket. The photo of Jackson and Ben was still there. Last night it had felt like a ghost. Now, it felt like a message. Ellie locked the back door and drew the blinds. Her breath caught in her throat as she walked back into the office, scanning every corner like she expected him to materialize from the shadows. He'd been here. Not long ago. It wasn't just a coincidence anymore. It was deliberate. And if he'd left the photo, then the question wasn't how, but why. She sat down hard in the wooden chair, phone clenched in her palm. She opened her brother's old contact card. The number was disconnected. Of course it was. She'd tried dozens of times in those first months after the military confirmed his death. And now the world was tilting. Was Ben alive? Was Jackson a ghost? Or was there something else entirely? She needed answers. She typed Jackson Reed into the search bar again, but this time added survivor, conspiracy, cover-up. The results were no less unsettling. More forums. More articles filled with gaps. More people claiming to have seen men in uniform off the grid, living like shadows, hiding in plain sight. Soldiers who had returned from the dead only to vanish again. But what stood out most was a story posted 3 months ago by a user named RedBison91. No photo. No names. Just a title, he showed up in my driveway, and he knew my dead son's name. Ellie clicked. The post described a middle-aged woman in Montana. A knock at midnight. A man who refused to come inside. Mud-covered. Hollow-eyed. Said nothing except, tell Tommy it wasn't his fault. She kept reading, chills running down her arms. The man in the story disappeared before dawn. But the woman had seen his photo before, in a military obituary years ago. Her son's commanding officer. She scrolled to the last line. I never told anyone, but the look in his eyes wasn't death. It was debt. Like he owed someone the truth before he could rest. Ellie stood. That was it. That was what had passed between her and Jackson. Something unresolved. Something unfinished. And whatever it was, it had followed him across continents, years, and now straight into her life. The door chime rang out front. A customer. Ellie walked back into the bakery and forced a polite smile as she served two elderly women ordering scones. But her eyes kept drifting toward the window, the parking lot beyond it, the empty space where he had stood. Her car still sat there. Locked. Undisturbed. Then she saw it. Another photo. Slipped beneath the windshield wiper. She stepped outside slowly, heart hammering. It was another shot from the same deployment. Ben. Jackson. And this time, a third man. Her fingers trembled as she turned it over. One line, written in the same hand, find the man in the middle. The ink was smudged with rain. But the message was clear. She hadn't imagined him. He was real. He was reaching out. And now she was part of something she didn't understand. Something that wouldn't let go. She didn't know why she agreed to meet the man, until he slid a photo across the diner table, and she saw her brother's handwriting on the back. The diner off Route 17 was nearly empty, save for a few truckers nursing bitter coffee and old regrets. The flickering neon sign buzzed outside, red letters spelling, "All Night Eats," casting a washed-out glow through the windows. Ellie sat in a booth near the back, fingers wrapped tight around a ceramic mug she hadn't touched in 10 minutes. The man across from her hadn't said much. Military posture, worn jacket, eyes like he'd seen too much and still didn't trust the air. He called himself Quinn. No last name. No rank. Just Quinn. Ellie wasn't sure what she expected, answers, maybe. Closure. Or at least proof that she wasn't losing her mind. Instead, Quinn reached into his coat and placed a photo face down on the table. I think you should see this, he said, voice low but certain. She hesitated, then turned it over. 3 men again. Same group. Same dusty uniforms. But this time, the moment was different. They were laughing. Ben was laughing. And written across the back, in handwriting Ellie hadn't seen in nearly a decade. For Ellie. If something happens, find Quinn. He knows. Her hand trembled. You knew my brother, she whispered. I did. You told me he died. He did, Quinn said. But not like they said. The air in the diner thickened. Ellie leaned in. Then tell me the truth. Quinn's eyes scanned the windows, his jaw tight. Your brother was part of a unit that never officially existed. Black Echo, we called it. Classified even beyond Pentagon channels. They sent us in when they wanted silence, not results. The kind of missions where even success was a secret. And Jackson? Ellie asked. Why is he showing up now? Because something's about to break. Quinn pulled out a napkin and drew a quick map. There's a location upstate. A cabin. Last place Jackson was seen before he went dark again. I was hoping you'd come with me. Ellie shook her head. Why me? I'm a baker, not a soldier. Quinn met her eyes. Because you're the last person Jackson trusted. And because someone's been watching your apartment since last week. She froze. Don't look alarmed, Quinn added. But you've been followed. Her mind raced. The photo. The muddy boot print. The call from a restricted number that hung up after one ring. All of it lined up like pieces she didn't know were part of the same puzzle. But I don't even know what I'm walking into. That makes 2 of us, Quinn said. But if Jackson reached out to you, it means he's running out of time, or options. Ellie stared at the photo again. The date scribbled under Ben's message. 2 weeks before his unit was declared dead. "You owe me the full truth," she said. "And I'll give it," Quinn replied, "but not here." They paid in cash. Quinn walked her to the car like a bodyguard. Just before Ellie opened the door, she turned. "What's at the cabin?" "Answers," Quinn said. "Or more questions?" "That depends on who gets there first." She didn't know what they'd find at the cabin, until headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, and Quinn whispered, "We're not alone." She didn't know what they'd find at the cabin, until headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, and Quinn whispered, "We're not alone." The road to the Adirondack cabin wound like a lazy ribbon through thick woods and silent dusk. Trees leaned in from both sides, skeletal fingers brushing the windshield. Quinn drove without music, without words, eyes fixed ahead as if the night might speak if he listened hard enough. Ellie sat beside him, fingers fidgeting with the edge of the photo Ben had left behind. She'd folded it once, then again, then smoothed it out for the 100th time. Her brother's face stared back, smiling, unafraid. She'd forgotten he used to smile like that. They reached the cabin just past 10. A worn structure, barely more than a rectangle of wood and ghost stories. A single porch light flickered on as Quinn killed the engine. They stepped out into the cool air. Pine needles crunched underfoot. The silence here was total, no cars, no planes overhead. Just stars, a million of them. But when Quinn opened the door, he stopped. Something was off. He motioned Ellie to stay back and slipped inside first. She waited, heartbeat loud in her ears. After a minute, he called her in. The place was dusty but lived in. A fire had been lit recently, ashes still warm. On the small table lay a field notebook, half open. Ellie stepped forward, drawn to it like a moth. Inside, notes in shorthand. Coordinates. A list of initials she didn't recognize, except one. BC. Ben Carter. She turned to Quinn, her voice barely a breath. "He's been here." He nodded. "Not long ago. But he left in a hurry." Before Ellie could reply, a flash of light swept across the cabin walls. Headlights. She rushed to the window. A black SUV idled behind Quinn's car. No plates. Quinn moved quickly, lights out, door barred, sidearm drawn from his ankle holster. "Stay low," he said. "If they're who I think they are, they won't knock." Ellie crouched beside the fireplace. She heard doors open. Footsteps on gravel. 3 of them. One called out, voice muffled. "Quinn. We just want to talk." Quinn didn't answer. The men circled the cabin. One tried the front door. Locked. Then, a sound at the back, a soft click, like a window latch. Quinn grabbed Ellie's hand and motioned toward the crawl space. "Out the back. Now." They slid beneath the rear porch, breath shallow. The night wrapped around them like a secret. Above, footsteps moved inside. Heavy. Searching. Ellie's fingers clenched the notebook. "What do they want?" Quinn's eyes were hard. "Same thing we do." "Answers. Only they're not asking nicely." They waited until the men moved upstairs. Then, Quinn signaled. They darted through the trees, down the slope behind the cabin. In the distance, a train howled, one long cry through the forest. When they reached the creek bed, Ellie stopped. "We can't keep running," she said. Ben didn't. He stood for something. "And look where it got him," Quinn replied. "Dead. Or disappeared." "No," her voice was steady now. "He left me that photo for a reason. You were part of it. So was this place. I'm not leaving until I know the truth." Quinn stared at her a long moment, then nodded. "We don't go back to the cabin," he said. "But there's another place. Deeper in the woods. An old comm station. That's where he would have gone if things got bad. Ellie tightened her grip on the notebook. Then let's go before they find it first. She didn't know who else was looking for the truth, until a bullet snapped past her ear, and Quinn shoved her behind a tree, yelling, "Move." She didn't know who else was looking for the truth, until a bullet snapped past her ear, and Quinn shoved her behind a tree, yelling, "Move." Ellie's breath caught as bark exploded beside her face. The gunshot cracked the forest's silence like thunder, sharp and final. Quinn didn't wait, he dragged her by the arm, down the slope, across moss-slicked rocks and fallen logs. Every second felt like a lottery between life and death. More shots, closer this time. "Keep your head low," he shouted, ducking behind a boulder. "They're not warning us anymore." She collapsed beside him, heart slamming in her chest. "Who are they?" Quinn scanned the woods with military precision. "Contractors. Hired muscle. The kind that's off-book and well-paid to make sure secrets stay buried." Ellie pressed the notebook to her chest, the only thing left of Ben now. "They're after this." "Exactly. And probably after you, too." Above them, shadows moved through the trees. Flashlights bobbed, cutting across trunks like searchlights. Quinn motioned toward a ravine just a few yards away. "We jump into that creek bed, we lose the trail, maybe by time." She didn't hesitate. The fall was steep, but the water below broke their drop. Ice cold and rushing fast, it soaked them instantly. They crawled along the bank, hidden by night and the roar of the current. It wasn't until they reached a shallow bend that Quinn stopped and pointed. An old, rusted shack sat camouflaged by overgrown ivy and forgotten time. "That's it," he said, voice barely audible. "The relay station." Ben mentioned it once, said if anything went wrong, that's where he'd leave the real story. They climbed inside through a warped back door. The air was thick with dust and mildew. Old radios lined the walls, long dead. In the center of the room was a metal lockbox, just like the one Ben used to keep under his bed when they were kids. Quinn pried it open with his knife. Inside, a thumb drive, a faded letter, and a patch, military. Black and red. Unmarked. Ellie picked up the letter first. Her name was written in Ben's messy scrawl. She read aloud. "If you're here, then I'm either gone or too close to the truth to leave a trail. Don't trust anyone in uniform unless you've seen them bleed. This isn't about me. It's about what they're doing to soldiers who speak up." She stopped, tears filling her eyes. Quinn took the drive. "We have to get this to someone who still cares about justice. You ready?" Before Ellie could answer, the floorboards groaned behind them. A silhouette appeared in the doorway, tall, steady, holding a rifle. Not the men from before. A woman. She stepped into the moonlight. Her voice was gravel and steel. "You Ben Carter's sister?" Ellie nodded slowly. "Who are you?" The woman lowered her weapon. "Name's Sergeant Riley. Ben saved my life in Kandahar. I've been looking for you." She didn't know who this soldier was, but as she handed Ellie a bloodied photo of Ben with Riley's unit, she whispered, "He died trying to warn you." She didn't know who this soldier was, but as she handed Ellie a bloodied photo of Ben with Riley's unit, she whispered, "He died trying to warn you." Ellie's fingers trembled as she stared at the photo. Ben, in uniform, dusty but smiling, arms slung around the woman now standing before her. On the back, scrawled in pen, "If this gets out, they'll bury us twice." Riley looked older than the photo, shadows beneath her eyes, the kind that came from too many missions and not enough truth. "He told me if anything happened to him, I had to find you. Make sure you finished what he couldn't." Ellie looked at Quinn, soaked, bruised, but steady as always. Riley opened her coat. Inside were pages, printed, highlighted, redacted. This is what they didn't want him to share. A program that used soldiers as test subjects, experimental tracking implants under the guise of performance enhancement. Ben found out it didn't stop with volunteers. Some were coerced. Some never made it home. Ellie's throat tightened. Is that what happened to him? He was going to testify, Riley said softly. 2 days before the hearing, he disappeared during training. We all knew it was a message. The storm outside had passed, but Ellie felt the pressure building in her chest, louder than thunder. What now? She asked. Quinn pulled out the thumb drive. We go public. Ben's story. Your story. Riley's. We leak everything. They'll silence us, Ellie said. Riley shook her head. They already tried. And they failed. They drove that night, Riley behind the wheel of a truck no one would question, Quinn navigating through back roads. Ellie sat in the back, replaying every memory of Ben, Thanksgiving laughter, backyard baseball, that night he called her crying from boot camp. By dawn, they reached a contact Quinn trusted, an old journalist named Peter Griggs, long retired but still respected. He lived alone in a cabin lined with filing cabinets and a wariness for the government. Let me guess, he muttered, eyeing the drive. Truth nobody wants but everybody needs. Ellie nodded. Hours later, Peter hit upload. The files scattered into cloud servers, encrypted, mirrored across borders. Within minutes, headlines lit up like flares. Whistleblower soldier's death linked to secret military trials. Family of veteran exposes underground implant program. The footage of Ben's recorded testimony, never meant to see daylight, played on every platform. His voice, steady and full of conviction, filled living rooms across America. Ellie watched, tears slipping down her face. We fight for truth, Ben had said in the video. Even when it breaks us. Especially then. A week later, Congress launched an inquiry. The officials behind the program were suspended, then arrested. Riley received an official apology, though it came too late for most. As for Ellie, she went back to her job. Quietly. Calmly. But different. One morning, she returned to her car, parked beneath the same overpass where this had all begun. A note was tucked beneath the windshield. You gave him justice. R. She didn't know what came next, but as she looked out over the quiet city, Ben's voice echoed in her memory, even when it breaks us. Especially then.